I consider it a great honor to welcome the chief guest, Sri Devendra Surana, onto the dais. Mr. Devendra Surana has pursued his Bachelor of Engineering Mechanical from Usmania University and his post-graduation from IIM Bangalore. He is a renowned industrialist who is presently working as a managing director of Bhagyanagar India Limited and served as the president of Surana Solar Limited, which are the manufacturers of copper products, auto electrical, solar polar photovoltaic panels, and has a significant contribution to solar and wind power generation. He was awarded with the Entrepreneur of the Year 2019 award by HMA presented by the Vice President of India.
I request our chief guest Sri Devendra Surana to deliver the Silver Jubilee address.
Thank you very much. Durga Lakshmi Saraswati. I was just talking to Joshi here and talking about trends, what I've seen in my life. This is the biggest mega trend which I have seen in my life. The age was of Durga, the age is of Lakshmi, and the future is of Saraswati. So in this temple of Saraswati, it is my privilege and honor to be here in front of all of you. Thank you for this opportunity. The High Priest of the Temple of Lakshmi in absentia, the Chancellor and the Principal, the teachers who are the very epitome of Lakshmi, and a lot of your faculty who are in teaching and learning. Thank you very much for being there. And the rest of us, the guest of honor, me, and a lot of us are still following Lakshmi. But this trend of Durga Lakshmi Saraswati has a lot to say. Once I say this, it is very clear that the age belonged to the person with Durga until the year 1800, maybe 1850, maybe 1900. So Europe, with the power of pure might, controlled the entire world. And today nobody really gives too much value to brawn power. Today is the age of Lakshmi, when everything is determined by economics, everything is determined by what brings in money. But frankly, even this age is over. We can see total transition from the age of Lakshmi to the age of Saraswati. The first indication for me was when Instagram got sold. 13 people working for 13 months with zero revenue got $1 billion. Very clearly shows how Lakshmi is a dwarf in front of Saraswati. And the trend is only continuing. Every day we see this mega trend happening that we are moving from Lakshmi to Saraswati. And Saraswati doesn't just mean bookish knowledge, it means creativity, it means innovation, it means doing things in a new way, a better way. And that is the reason I'm a very big optimist about the future. And I can see only good things happening in the future. The second mega trend which we see happening around us is change. Change has always been there, but the speed of change has become so exponential that my prediction is that in the next 10 years, we will see the change of the last 50 years. If you think back 50 years, you will be actually thinking that there's nothing which I can relate to. Even 25 years back when you graduated, and just now it was said that nobody could predict what you are today. I'm sure when you graduated 25 years down the line in your career, you would have been thinking I'll be close to the end of my career. But today, all of you are in your prime, and the next 25 years are your best 25 years. And this would not have been predicted. The same way, the last 50 years, if you can think of it, no computers, no TV, probably no radio, how you used to live and how you are living today. Forget 25 years, 10 years back when there was no smartphone, you can't imagine the life today. And imagine in 10 years down the line, the life will be as different from today as today is from 50 years back. No business model is going to remain. No truth which is there as a truth today is going to remain. So this can be very frightening because none of us can do what we are doing and still survive. But it can be a great challenge because the opportunities in front of us are unlimited. So this is the major second mega trend which I am saying. The third mega trend which I have seen, we are the generation where the population has grown the maximum. I don't know if many of you are aware, but the population in the year 1900 was just 1 billion, not of India, but the entire world. 1 billion has become 7 billion in a period of just 100 years. The population of the world has gone up by 7 times in just 100 years. And each of us here today is consuming 6, 8, 10, 20 times more than what our grandfathers used to consume. So if you multiply the two, the consumption of manpower in the world has gone up by 70 times in just a period of 100 years. Lot of doomsdayer predicted this, projected this, and then said that if you are going to consume 70 times what the earth can give, we are in big trouble. But are we in trouble? No. In fact, we are today at a situation which is probably the best the world has ever been. All of us, in terms of our health, in terms of our prosperity, in terms of our quality of life, are much better. All of us are much better, and if you take the average, it is really exponentially better. So this is something which we need to think. In spite of having 70 times more resources taken from the earth, how is it that we are better off? How is it that things are more affordable? Everybody, I was just talking to somebody, I was the only guy who came in a car in the school, to the college. Today everybody can afford it. It's no big deal. So everybody is affording more and better things. And still the world is a better place. Why is this happening? And this is something which we need to understand as a mega trend. This is happening only because of one thing: productivity gains. In spite of consuming 70 times of the material, our productivity gains have been 70 times or maybe more than 70 times for making things more affordable. And why is the productivity gains happening? Because of various productivity tools like automation, miniaturization, AI, email, mobiles, smartphones, and so have you. Now, taking this trend into the future, what do we see? If you look at the statistics of population growth, a very surprising statistic is that the number of childbirths in India or over the world is constant for the last 20 years. The number of children born in the world is constant. Since 1990s, the population is growing only because of longevity. And the longevity will continue to rise and take our population from 7 billion to maybe 10 billion or 11 billion, where we'll sort of plateau. But what is happening on the productivity gains on the other side? Because of computerization, because of networking, because the world is so much global, the productivity gains are only accelerating. Every year we see productivity gains in every field are accelerating like nobody's business. On the one hand, we see a plateauing of the number of people, and on the other side, we see productivity gains continuing to go up. What does that mean? We are going to end up in an era of surplus. We are going to end up in an era of surplus like never before. See, we as a mindset have come, our generation has come from an era of just out of deprivation. We always thought there is going to be shortage. The professors' years will remember that everything was in a shortage, whether it was food grains, whether it was anything, transportation, everything had a queue, everything had a ration. Our generation haven't seen that, but the next generation will see an era of surplus, a surplus in everything which you can think of. I know I'm talking something big, because the doomsday always says there will be shortage and there will be water wars and there will be energy wars and stuff like that. I'll tell you a story at this juncture. There was a Thai king. He went and met Napoleon Bonaparte. And as it is when two heads of state meet, there were a huge dinner, and everybody was served according to his status. Someone was given gold, someone was given silver, someone was given aluminum, someone steel, and someone earthen pots. Do you know in which plate the Thai king was served? He was served in aluminum. Why aluminum? Napoleon Bonaparte was very proud. Look, I have discovered a metal which is so light, you don't even feel it in your hand. And why was he proud? Because that was the first time aluminum was made out of alumina. Today we know half of Earth's crust is made of alumina. And aluminum is one of the cheapest material around. In spite of alumina being there, we couldn't take out aluminum. And that is the reason there was a shortage of aluminum. Now let's look at the shortages which we talk about these days. The biggest shortages of energy. I know 10 years back everybody was predicting wars because of oil and stuff like that. Do you know how much energy we use on the earth? I'm in solar power, so I know. We use exactly half a day's solar energy, which is received from sun to the earth, over the entire year for the entire humanity. Just half a day's energy. And I'm not even getting into nuclear energy. Once you look at nuclear energy, this much fist of material can be enough to power the world forever. Literally. So energy is not in shortage. We just do not know how to harness it today. We do not know how to harness it well. In solar energy, I'll just give you a statistic. The first time I sold solar power, it was at 18 rupees per unit. Today it is at 3 rupees. In spite of inflation eating away 50% of the money. So we are getting there. The second shortage people talk, and especially now because of the drought in India, is of the wars in water. Do you know how much water we use in the world? 0.3% of the water available in the world. It's just that we don't know how to harness the water, how to take it to the places where we want to. Once energy becomes cheap, water will become cheaper. So the days of surplus are here for everything and anything. The funniest thing for me is money. And when I say this, I get a lot of people in the audience saying, this fellow's gone mad. When I say money is going to be in surplus. But look at it. Japan is in negative interest rate for 10 years. They don't know what to do with the money. They have to put it in the bank and give money to them. Europe, Switzerland and Germany are following the negative interest rates. So even money is going to be in surplus. Believe me, that is my pure, distinct thought. So what does it mean? You know, examples. What happens when you are looking at surplus? All of us are trained, you know, when we do our training, management, we want to conserve our resources, we want to manage our resources. When you are in a surplus, you need to deal with, how do you deal with surpluses? Now you look at companies which are surviving today. Airbnb has converted all the rooms into hotel rooms. Uber has converted every vehicle into taxi. So you have suddenly a surplus of hotels, taxis, your Trivagos and everything. Everything has become management of surpluses. So what is the lesson for that? We need to be asset light. If you have assets, which was earlier our thought that if we have asset, we can manage our company. Today, if you have asset, it becomes a millstone because you don't know when the asset will become a surplus. So that is something which is a very clear trend which I have been seeing in my life. So managing surpluses is something which we need to do. Now let me come to two things which are my own thoughts. Thoughts about a customer. You know, everybody is talking about the customer since Gandhi. Gandhi said customer is the most important person when he comes to your shop. When I did my management in 88, I was told customer satisfaction is the key to success in the business. When we went a little further, they said, no, satisfaction is not enough. You have to delight the customer. You have to exceed his expectation. You have to give him more than what he wants or what he expects. I have made a simple formula. If you want to be successful today in business, it is my mantra, you have to make the customer lazy. You have to make the customer lazy. If you can make the customer lazy, you are successful. If you can't, you are out of business. When there is a surplus in the market, the only way the customer is with you is when you make him lazy. Now think about it. Any service or goods which make you lazy are the only services and products which are successful. Starting from Google, starting from Flipkart, getting into your Swiggy. Aren't everything which you are using making you lazy today? Your e-ticketing, everything which is successful is making you lazy. And it's not just in the digital space. I am in a B2B business. I supply copper to my customers. But my thought process is always that what I do, will it make them work a little more or a little less? Look at your luggage. I don't know if you used it, but when I passed out of college, it needed 2 people to carry my bag. We never had those trolleys. Once the trolleys came in, all other luggages went out. Everything which you do, make a customer lazy, is the key to everything. I have last 3 minutes, so I'll just complete with 2 things which I have. Another concept which I have read is anti-fragile. And I think it's a very, very important concept for everybody to understand to succeed in this life. What is anti-fragile? Fragile is something which breaks. Anti-fragile is the opposite of that. So the normal answer is, if I throw a glass down, it breaks, it is fragile. If I throw a glass down and it doesn't break, it should be anti-fragile, but it is not. It is just solid. Anti-fragile is, if I throw a glass down, it should bounce up by becoming a bigger glass. Can you think of making yourself, your kids, your companies anti-fragile? Because believe me, the future shocks will come. The falling down will happen. Can you come up without being scathed? Not good enough. You have to come up becoming bigger. Can you think of any examples which are anti-fragile? Anybody? See, that is because I said a glass, nobody thought about it. But if you think of it, everything which is growing is anti-fragile. Think of your muscles. If you don't use your muscles, what will happen? They will atrophy. The only way to grow your muscles is to keep hitting them. Your brain, unless you keep taxing your brain, you will not grow. So you have to make your companies like that. When you look at our kids, we are protecting them. We don't allow them to cross the road. We don't want them to be exposed to life. Are you making them strong? Are you making them safe? All of us here say no, but we still do it. We have to allow them to be exposed to life so that they can become anti-fragile, so that when the shock comes, and believe me, it will come, the way changes are happening, all of us will be shocked out of our skins. Can we make our companies anti-fragile? Or do we build in more and more layers of fat to protect and make it solid? We all know that is a pure recipe for disaster now. But that's what the public sector did. And we know what is happening. So anti-fragile is another concept I would like all of you to look at. And before I leave, just because we live in India, I have 3 strong growth things for India. First, we are at a very low cost. In spite of the fact that we are using 10 times what our grandfathers did, we are using still less than 1/10 of what the rest of the world is using. They have a very, very low base. Our per capita consumption of steel, plastic, copper is still 1/10 of the world. So we have a huge demand which still will be coming. The second is demographics. Our country for the first time has more working age people than dependent. And this meaning, I'll just tell you, when this happened in Korea, this happened in US in 1940, Japan in 1970, Korea in 1980, and China in 1990. And we know what happened to those economies in those times. We are at that cusp. And the third, digitalization and globalization. Never before we have seen this earth being so flat. Anything being done anywhere can be done here. And when we have such a low base and such a low cost with a great demographic, I don't think the combination of these 3 factors coming together is an opportunity which comes once in a year or once in 10 years. It's an opportunity which comes in a millennia. And it's upon all of us to take advantage of this opportunity and go for it. Thank you very much for having me here. great pride and privilege to be part of this. And congratulations, Dr. Sudhakar and the rest of the team for a wonderful job done. I am envious of your batch. Thank you.